More breaking news right now at noon. A judge denies bond for 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick. The Carroll County teenager is accused of murdering her mother, 41-year-old Kristin Brock, and her stepfather, 45-year-old James Brock.
From the very moment the 911 call was received, a relentless investigation began. Our team has pursued every lead, sifted through mountains of physical and digital evidence.
If they say they have a mountain of evidence, that folder was pretty thin.
In Georgia, a 17-year-old teenager's little sister wakes her up in the middle of the night, describing a horrible scene. Their parents shot in cold blood as they slept in their bed. What sounded like a nightmare turned out to be true. Kristin and James Brock were killed while snuggling under their own covers, with no signs of forced entry, no motive, and no one who heard the gun sound off. Investigators were stumped. Who killed this God-fearing couple? Hi, I'm Katie Ring, a true crime analyst, self-defense instructor, and a fierce advocate for victims. And this is Crime House Daily, your essential true crime companion, every weekday, morning, and night, powered by PAVE Studios. Here at Crime House, we will be taking an investigative approach to true crime. We'll be staying on the cases and trials making headlines now, where justice is still in motion, arrests are still being made, and where new evidence is still coming to light. This is a Night Watch episode, our evening show that takes you even deeper into today's biggest crimes. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Crime House Daily. This episode discusses active criminal cases and breaking news. The information we share is based on what's publicly available at the time of recording and may change as new evidence comes to light. We aim to inform, not to decide guilt or innocence, so everyone mentioned is presumed innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. Our main case today is a really crazy one. It involves a quiet Georgia town that was left in shock over a double homicide. A teenage daughter named Sarah Grace Patrick turned to TikTok to mourn the double murder of her parents, while her 5-year-old sister is the one who found their bodies. But recently, Sarah found out that she might go to trial in early January 2026, not to testify as a witness, but as the main suspect. Now onto the main story. This is a case that's literally too shocking to even process. I still can't believe this is even a real story because it's not only a murder, but it's a double murder. A crime that shattered the perception of a small southern town and exposed a dark truth hidden behind a picture-perfect facade. So let's talk about a town in Georgia called Carrollton. It sits about 50 miles outside of Atlanta, near the border of Alabama. And if Southern charm was a place, Carrollton is absolutely the embodiment of it. It's got historic houses with big front porches, tree-lined streets, cute little local restaurants, and lots of greenery. It's a classic small-town vibe. But there's nothing quaint or cute about what went down in a house in Carrollton this February. In the words of a local resident, it's the kind of place where something like this just doesn't happen. Kristin and James Brock decided to raise their huge blended family in Carrollton. They were both in their 40s, with 7 kids in total between the two of them, from both previous relationships and their own. The Brock household was a bustling hub of activity. It was loud and chaotic, but also full of love. Or so their friends and neighbors say. Because the Brocks were a family that everyone knew. They lived in a beautiful home with a big front yard located in a quiet street where kids played freely and neighbors knew each other by name. James, according to his son Tristan, was the kind of guy who'd literally give you the shirt off his back. A pillar of the community and an active member of the church, James was seen as a devoted patriarch. But James had an edge too. He loved riding motorcycles and didn't put up with any disrespect. He was definitely the tough parent who kept his kids in line. On the other hand, Kristin was described as super bubbly, one of those people who just loved giving hugs and making everyone laugh. Just a ray of sunshine. Together, they were really loved in their small, close-knit community. They were a family who went to church all the time. They were often seen at local events, volunteering their time, and from everything people said, they didn't have a single enemy. And among their kids was 17-year-old Sarah Grace Patrick, Kristin's daughter from a previous relationship. Sarah was navigating that weird in between phase of not quite being a kid, but not quite being an adult yet either. She was active on social media, especially TikTok, where she shared snippets of her life like any normal teenager. To most people, she seemed like an average high schooler, independent, moody, maybe a little dramatic, but nothing out of the ordinary. She posted about her school, her friends, her family, little curated clips that painted a picture of a normal, happy life. But not everything was as picture perfect as it seemed in the Brock house. It's very late at night on February 20th, 2025. Kristin and James are fast asleep in their master bedroom, which is located on the second floor of their home. Their 5-year-old daughter gets up, like little kids do, probably just wanting to crawl into bed with her parents. She pushes open the door to their room, and what she sees will likely stay with her for the rest of her life. She sees her parents, motionless, blood spilled all over the covers. Her mom and dad are both dead, and they've each been shot multiple times. It's a total nightmare. The house was quiet, a little too quiet. Plus, the murderer and a weapon are nowhere to be found. Despite being so young, the 5-year-old girl did what any brave kid would do. She ran to tell someone. And who did she turn to? Her older sister, Sarah. Kristin and James Brock's 5-year-old daughter walked into a terrifying sight. Her parents' lifeless bodies. The little girl, in a state of terror, runs to her older sister Sarah and tells her what she saw. So Sarah obviously races to pick up the phone and dials 3 numbers no one ever wants to dial: 911. This happens just before 6 a.m., and when dispatch picks up, Sarah tells them that her parents have each been shot to death in their house and that their younger sister found them. The dispatcher, trying really hard to get more information, or any information at all, asks Sarah if she knows anything about what happened. Sarah, in a panicked state, tells the dispatcher that she has no idea and didn't hear anything. Cops show up and start trying to piece things together. Their original idea is that it was a break-in, and maybe the suspect killed Kristin and James in a robbery gone wrong. But that theory doesn't hold up for long, because police canvassed the neighborhood, talking to the neighbors, asking if they saw or heard anything, but no one did. One neighbor said they were a light sleeper and would have woken up to a commotion. And then there's no sign of forced entry. The room's not trashed, drawers aren't open, nothing's been rifled through. And weirdly, it doesn't even look like there was a struggle. So then it's like, who just walks into someone's house and shoots them without taking anything? Especially if no one in their small town disliked them. And here's the part that's going to send chills up your spine. Kristin and James weren't alone in the house that night. Their 5-year-old daughter was there, of course, but so was their 17-year-old daughter, Sarah. Obviously, Sarah gets questioned since she's most likely the last person to see her parents alive. She tells the cops the same thing she told dispatch, though, that she didn't hear anything, not a door, a yell, or a crash. As in, she didn't hear multiple bangs of the gun firing as it killed her parents. But hey, who knows? Maybe Sarah has bad hearing or is a heavy sleeper. I'll give her the benefit of the doubt for now. Plus, her younger sister says that she didn't hear anything either. With no real suspect yet, the town is afraid that a killer could very much be on the loose in Carrollton. A sense of unease and fear sweeps through the close knit community. I mean, the tension is palpable. Still, the community comes together to grieve. They hold a funeral for Kristin and James and give everyone a proper chance to say goodbye. And who was in charge of leading this funeral? None other than Sarah, who delivers the eulogy. Let's listen to this eulogy together.
To remember him for who they were and not what happened to them, and be happy for the time we got to spend together and not sad about the time that we don't. I love you guys, and so do they. I'm sorry.
What really concerns people is how Sarah decides to end it. She says the words, they, her family members, love you, and so do I. I'm sorry. Now, what exactly is Sarah saying here? Is she saying, I'm sorry to the deceased parents? Maybe to the people in the crowd because she's tripping over her words during her speech? We're not really sure. So, good thing that's the investigator's job to track anything and everything that seems a little off. Now, I know that everyone has their own ways of coping with grief, especially when it comes to something as brutal as what happened to Kristin and James. And Sarah definitely had her own way of dealing with it all. She turns to the app that probably a majority of people have installed on their phones right now, TikTok. She starts posting a ton on TikTok, mourning about losing her parents and even asking people online if they have any information on their murders. She shares clips of her family, giving people a sneak peek into their private lives, like James wearing a sparkly pink cowboy hat and dancing, shopping with her mom, Kristin, and going to church with them. There's also just tons of images of her crying, with streams of mascara running down her face, and with captions saying, I can't do this without my mom, sent into an anxiety attack as we enter the parking lot to the church my parents always took me to, and a selfie that says, it hits when I go into a depression spell so bad that I call 988 and contemplate going to a mental hospital. But these cries for help were just the tip of the iceberg. She also began reaching out to bigger TikTok influencers and creators to cover the crime. She messages them about what happened, saying it's important to spread awareness about their murders. Among these creators was a true crime TikToker known as Allegedly Reportedly, who claims that Sarah Grace Patrick actually messaged her directly, asking her to cover her parents' murders. And once the videos started going up, Sarah was all over the comment section. Like on this one video, someone asked, what was the weapon? And Sarah responded with a gun emoji. And investigators agree. They think something feels off. Why was Sarah being so public about everything? And why reach out to influencers with massive followings? As the weeks passed, the police kept digging for a suspect. Then, on July 8th, 2025, nearly 3 months after Kristin and James were murdered, they made an arrest. The Carrollton Police Department had just made an arrest, and the suspect was Sarah Grace Patrick, Kristin's biological daughter and James's stepdaughter, a 17-year-old girl not even old enough to vote. And yet, Carrollton police believe she wielded a gun. Sarah is charged with 2 counts of alleged murder and 2 counts of alleged aggravated assault. When she was told that there is an arrest warrant out for her, Sarah's biological dad, Daniel Patrick, went with her to turn herself in. Ashley Holsey, a spokesperson for the Carroll County Sheriff's Office, addressed the arrest on July 8th in a press conference. She said officials pursued every lead, sifted through mountains of physical and digital evidence, conducted countless interviews, and collaborated with the FBI and private forensic labs. But honestly, they still haven't given a clear reason why Sarah is their prime suspect. The Crimehouse team reviewed her arrest warrant, and we didn't see any other information listed beyond the fact that she's being charged with murder and aggravated assault. Let's start with her biological dad, Daniel. He just did an interview with the Law and Crime Network, and he doubled down on his daughter's innocence. Let's roll the clip.
Sarah knows more than most people knows, and the only thing that she could think of was there was drug deals go wrong. You know, they ripped somebody off a couple months before that. I mean, there was a incident that happened right before Valentine's. There was a friend of theirs that actually pulled a gun on them right before Valentine's Day. If they say they have a mountain of evidence, that folder was pretty thin.
Okay, a lot to unpack here. Daniel revealed 2 situations that could have potentially made the Brocks a target. But it's also interesting that the drug deal gone wrong story seems to be coming directly from Sarah. Do we think she had the answer rehearsed for her dad? Or are these legitimate suspects that authorities should take seriously? Either way, the mountain of evidence being allegedly a thin file could mean one of 2 things. One, investigators really could have little to no evidence and are just hoping that Sarah slips up and confesses. Or 2, the evidence they do have is so substantial, like fingerprints or other forensic samples, that they are confident she did it and don't need a lot of extra documents to prove it. But clearly, one thing's for sure, her dad is sticking by her side. The other person in Sarah's corner is her grandpa, Dennis Nolan. This is Kristin Brock's dad. He spoke with Court TV, and he thinks the authorities were just desperate to arrest someone. Let's listen.
I asked him, I said, well, what proof why did you pick on Sarah? He said, well, she's the only one who could have done it. And that's a quote. But and that's, to me, that's not enough proof to throw a 17-year-old girl in jail. And you take a 100-pound girl and you hand her a 9mm pistol, the accuracy that gun had in her hand, I don't think it could happen.
He brings up an interesting point about the gun. We still don't know the exact area on the bodies where the shots were fired. But if it was a 9mm pistol, like he said, there's gonna be some recoil. It has a snappy, sharp power behind each shot. So if the shots were accurate, so to speak, it does make you wonder if someone with more experience with guns could have been behind this. So if we're keeping a tally of people in the not guilty camp, so far we've got her biological dad and her grandpa backing her. And next, another family member has joined the interview circuit. James Brock's niece, Kristin Dowda. She did an interview with Hidden True Crime and shed some light onto that day of the funeral and revealed something interesting. Let me play you a bit of that.
Nothing that raised an alarm to me, just a typical teenage girl. But Jamie had told us multiple times that Sarah was not who we thought she was.
It's definitely weird that Sarah said sorry so many times at the funeral, but was that just her guilt creeping in, or was it nerves from public speaking and being upset? And in this video, Kristin Dowda made not one, but 2 bombshell claims. That James used to be vocal with his concerns about his stepdaughter, and that multiple members of Sarah's family believe she was involved with their deaths. I mean, this completely contradicts Sarah's dad and grandpa's interviews, which will make for the most uncomfortable family reunion of the year. But let's hear from one more, James Brock's son, Tristan. And it's pretty clear what he wants: justice for his dad. And who is the culprit in his eyes? Also, Sarah Grace Patrick.
Additionally, based on her past behavior and what I know of her personally, I do not believe she has the integrity or accountability required to face the consequences of her actions. She has shown a willingness to avoid responsibility, and in my opinion, she would absolutely attempt to flee rather than stand trial if given the opportunity.
Tristan made a very emotionally charged Facebook post slamming his stepsister. It's long, so we won't read the whole thing, but he goes on to say his father was murdered due to an ignorant and psychotic piece of referring to his stepsister, super subtle. Well, Sarah Grace's preliminary hearing was held on August 19th, where family members literally wore "I Stand with Sarah Grace" t-shirts. And let me tell you, we've got more people to add to the Sarah Grace is not guilty camp. People like Ben Bonner, the lead pastor at Catalyst Church, where Sarah and her family worshiped. His well-articulated speech made it clear that he stands with Sarah Grace and her family, including her biological father, who has just been baptized. And he says that even now, Sarah Grace calls him from jail to pray. Caitlin O'Keefe, a friend of Sarah's father, is also a big supporter, telling the court that she bore witness to Sarah's horrible grief. She has a habit of taking lost kids in, so when Sarah needed help, Caitlin was right there. She believes that Sarah is a hardworking, sweet girl who could never do something this terrible. Carrie Jensen, the mother of Sarah's best friend, was adamant that Sarah might do typical teenager-type mischief, but otherwise she was a little angel. Carrie's court statement detailed how lovely Sarah was to Carrie's family, but curiously contained this little nugget about her mother and stepfather. Quote, "No matter what they've done, I will always forgive them and love them. Deep down, I know that's not who they truly are." Oh, but Sarah's family is as divided as ever. Kim Bowling, James's sister, gave an emotional plea for the judge to keep Sarah in jail. So did Sarah's stepbrother, Tristan. They're firmly on the side of the victims and not on Sarah's.
I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Since this tragic day, my brother Jamie and his wife Kristin were taken from us.
Lastly, the prosecutor told the court the Brock family is genuinely afraid of their own safety and don't want Sarah free. At this point, Sarah is crying hard in front of everyone, and for good reason, because the judge decides that Sarah is a flight risk and flat out denies setting a bond. Plus, he says Sarah could intimidate witnesses, such as her younger sister, a key witness in the case. The question we're left with is, if she did it, why did Sarah Grace Patrick murder her parents? Is the person behind the screen also the killer behind the trigger? Where is the gun? And did anyone help her? There's so many factors to consider in this case, so many things unanswered. So stay tuned, true crime fans, because Sarah Grace is back in court to find out what she's formally charged with. And we'll be waiting to give you the updates as they roll in. Tomorrow, I'm looking into the case of a teenager who killed an Uber driver to, quote, let off steam. Find out what investigators are discovering about his criminal history. And what do you think of today's case? Drop your thoughts and theories in the comments. Follow us at Crimehouse 24/7 on TikTok and Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube at Crimehouse Daily. For ad-free listening, join Crimehouse Plus on Apple Podcasts. You stay curious, and I'll stay on the case. I'll see you tomorrow.